Welcome to the Overgivers Anonymous podcast. My name is Angela Mondor, also known as the Geeky Girl. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about some amazing things to help you get over overgiving. Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Overgivers Anonymous podcast. My name is Angela Mondor. I am also known as the Geeky Girl, and today we're going to be talking about fear. Fear of failure is something that people coin a lot. You hear people talk about, oh, there's a fear of failure and therefore you aren't succeeding because you're afraid of failing. We don't always see it as a fear of failure. So I'm going to just put a few lights on things for you. Maybe you'll see things in a different way that maybe will help you see your situation through these eyes. Because I don't think I have a fear of failure personally. I don't attach that much to falling down because I'm going to get back up again. So to me, it's not, I'm afraid I'm going to fail and therefore I'm never going to get back up again. And sometimes I think that's where fear of failure is premise, like that's the picture that we put around it. However, I do have rejection sensitivity as something that for me is something that holds me back a lot. Now, that can show up because I'm fear literally of being rejected by people. It can show up that I am fear of offending people. Maybe I fear the way people judge me. Those are all different ways to say rejection sensitivity, clearly. However, the words we use matter, and you have different emotions tied to different words depending on how they have been used for you and against you throughout your entire journey. What story do you use when you say those words? Some people might think that, one word is not bad where another word or the same word to somebody else might feel like that's a really bad word. And I don't mean swears, but simply the way that we view a word. So somebody might describe somebody as one thing and you go, that's really not a nice way to describe them. And they go, oh no, that's totally cool. Like I don't mind being called that. The words we use matter. So try not to think of it as, oh, I don't have any fear of failure. It's not about failure in my mind. And so for me, that never worked. But if you start to sort of chew on the things that hold you back, the things that stop you from doing things. So for example, I'm building this really cool community and I have been fearful about building this community. I'm passionate about the community, feel confident that people who are going to come to this community are going to have so many benefits for being surrounded by supportive, amazing other entrepreneurs who are also neurodivergent and who maybe aren't even diagnosed, but are feeling like maybe they could be neurodiverse and they are trying to explore this idea. I'm passionate about getting these people together so that we can all be supportive and helpful together. But I'm fearful of the rotten apple. Okay? So I want to bring together and have a supportive community, but I'm fearful that if I let everybody in, then maybe somebody's not going to be okay for the community. And for a long time, I've let that stop me. And I've been more guarded about who I'll let in. It's like, oh, should I let that person in? Should I tell these people? Should I tell those people? And it took me some digging to figure out what it was I was afraid of. What was it? What fear was holding me back? I didn't know I was afraid of the tainted apple. I didn't know that that was what it was. Simply being afraid of, I wasn't worried about offending people necessarily. That wasn't necessarily the thing, although you could put it underneath that category. I was more worried about promising that I was going to bring all these people together for a supportive environment and inadvertently add something to the piece of the recipe that wasn't going to be good. So it took me a while to get through these things because I've been working on this mindset thing. And for me, I had to get to a point where I went, it's okay to allow everybody in, and it's okay to be mindful, maybe not fearful, but mindful that it's possible that somebody who comes in might not belong. But I have the power to say to that person, hey, hold on a second, that's not behavior that we are embracing here. Are you able to change that behavior, or are we going to have to say goodbye? Now, I had to get to the point where I understood what it was that held me back. That was what was holding me back, was the concept that I had to think that everything was perfect for everybody coming in, when that's not the case. I had to get through that. So that could still be under the umbrella of fear of failure. So when you think about the different reasons why these things are coming up in your business, right? That whole rejection sensitivity, it doesn't have to be dysphoria. The rejection sensitivity dysphoria is very different than just rejection sensitivity. A lot of people have rejection sensitivity. It's just the level of sensitivity you have against it. I mean, think about what it was like going through high school or junior high. Like we all had a little bit of that. So It's only when it gets in your way, right? When it causes a problem. But it could make it difficult for you to take some risks if you're worried about those things, if you have rejection sensitivity causing you some issues in your day-to-day world. That perfect, obviously, make sure this has to be perfect or I can't move forward. And you become fearful of not having it perfect and therefore not being able to take the steps because it's an all or nothing situation where it's not all or nothing. Being open to yourself to say, hey, it's okay if I make mistakes. It's okay if it's not exactly the way I envisioned it to be to begin with. To be flexible, it's important. It's okay. I mean, now, we will overanalyze, some of us. I definitely overanalyze a lot of things. And that can lead to decision paralysis. Paralysis seems to be a big deal for us. Getting to a certain point and going, I can't move. I literally had this today, actually. I was cleaning up some of my tasks and I was thinking, okay, I need to go do this thing. And then I couldn't do the thing because one little tiny piece of the puzzle was not in the right place. Obviously, I'm not talking about puzzle, it was tasks. There was one little task. It was like this one thing. And then I went down this rabbit hole. And when I was able to step back, I went, hold on, why can't I get these things done? And I stopped and I went, oh, it's because this is stopping me, because this is the hurdle. Okay, I need to get past the hurdle. I need to let go of that hurdle, basically. So the decision paralysis is similar to that, where it's like, oh, I could do all these things, but I can't make a decision. If you don't make a decision, it's just the same as making a decision. Because if you don't make a decision, you're going to stay stuck where you are. If you choose to make a decision, you're going to change the situation you're in. So you are still making a decision by not making a decision. But being stuck is what ends up happening, is because we don't want to make a decision. So we get stuck where we are. And then we shit all over ourselves. We tell ourselves that we're no good because we can't get better, when in fact, it's just that we need to start figuring out how to make decisions. And for all of us, that's going to be a little bit different. The way that I make decisions today is different than the way I did years ago, because I'm a different person than I was then. And that's important to honor. I know that in the future, I may make decisions differently then, because I'll learn and grow and be a different person then too. Understand where you are today and figure out how you can move past those things and move into a place where you can get out of the paralysis. To be able to say to yourself, hold on a second, what is stopping me? Okay, just like I did this morning. Hold on a second. I know I'm stuck. I know I'm stuck. Why am I stuck? How can I get out? Masking, of course, is a monster thing that we do. And sometimes it can be helpful for us to mask depending on our own personal traumas or experiences in life. It's possible that masking helps you through situations. When masking isn't helping anymore, when we have learned our proverbial life lessons and we are simply masking because it's just a habit now, I encourage you to just sort of figure out where that discernment is on those things. Sometimes we mask, I'll speak for myself personally. Sometimes I'll personally mask knowing that I'm masking. And I think that's the healthiest way to mask personally, is to walk into it and to know that I'm okay. I know I'm going to be putting on a happy face today. And it's not because I'm trying to make anybody else happy, but it's my way of putting space between me and other people. And sometimes that's a healthy thing to do. Sometimes we need to have that space between us. Not everybody needs to have everything of me. I don't need to be completely open all the time. Imposter syndrome is one of those other pieces that go with masking, because if we're not aware of the masking, I mean, if you're not 100% aware and you just are like, I have to behave this way in these people and I have to behave this way with these people, and we're not honest and open with ourselves, then the imposter syndrome is harder to deal with, because now we're like, but I don't fit in over there, or these people, I'm not as good as these people, or those kind of imposter thoughts that come up. So if you're thinking about not being good enough, that whole imposter syndrome piece, it could be that you are actually masking in those situations. And maybe it's not the place where you need/want to be in the first place. I read a really interesting quote recently, and it was by Jim Carrey. It was attributed to Jim Carrey anyway. I don't know if he actually said it because I didn't do the research. But anyway, he had said, air quotes, that when we are in depression, it's because we are masking, or we are in situations where we do not feel whole or safe, or that's where we want to be. And it's our inner voice basically telling us we're not happy and we need to make a change. And It's interesting that that's coming from him. I know he's a method actor and it's very difficult for him because he actually becomes the character that he performs on stage. Method acting is so bad for mental health. And I know Jim Carrey has suffered with a lot of mental health in his lifetime. But it's an interesting thought process. If you're unhappy with a situation, that whole imposter syndrome, feeling not good enough, is that maybe the cue that says, okay, hold on a second. Am I feeling the imposter syndrome simply because I'm trying to fit in like a square peg round hole kind of idea, right? I just thought it was an interesting sort of tidbit of thought that maybe help you when you're thinking about your own masking or your own imposter syndrome thoughts that you're having. These things have been, the more I learn about who I am, the more I learn about where my brain is and what works for me and what doesn't work for me, the happier I become, the less I should on myself. Notice I said the less I should of myself because I still should on myself on occasion. I still mask on occasion. There are still things that I do, but they're not the same as they used to be. And although I still have some rejection sensitivity, it's not in all the areas that I used to have it. I've grown, I've learned. Obviously, therapy is a great thing. Working with other people who are supportive of my cause, of who I am, of my journey, those are all really important things for me and possibly for you to help you get through and become different through your experience. When we're looking at failure and you're thinking about, geez, I don't want to fail, and try to make this a less uncomfortable place for you, here's my thoughts. A lot of us have been told that our business is our baby. I know I talk about this on another episode as well. Just brief, it's not. It was so freeing to learn that from one of my coaches, to say, no, my business isn't my baby. My business is simply a business. And from there, I could then, instead of shooting on myself more about what was going on, I could literally look at the things that were happening in the business as data rather than a direct reflection on who I am as a human being. I was able to literally zoom out 30,000 feet. Okay, what is it that's happening? What needs to change? And it's not necessarily Angela has failed. Now I look, like I said, Geeky Girl is not doing well in this particular situation or in these particular parameters. What can Angela and Julia and Ariel do to change the actions we're taking? Obviously, that's my team, right? To make some different choices. Isabel's also on my team. She just comes in a couple times a year though, because she's our graphic designer. When you're looking at the overall picture of the business, now it's not about my personal failure. Okay. And that's been helpful. So instead of it being a direct reflection on me, I can zoom out. It becomes data as opposed to being emotionally connected to me. That's been helpful. If you're still afraid of things, take small, low risk steps to build up your courage. If I was taking low risk steps in my own world about this, worrying about the people coming into the community, I could, maybe say, oh, here's a trusted group of people that I feel comfortable with. These are the people that I want to share this with, right? And even if you don't know everybody over there, the group's been good, so I'll share it with everybody over there. You can take those steps as opposed to just going, okay, here we are, the world's out there. So taking small, manageable risks can help you build up your courage in taking steps in things that you are afraid of. Also setting up a safety net for yourself. My safety net in the story that I told you was simply knowing that I can say somebody can't be there, that I know how I can offboard somebody from the community, basically. That's my safety net. What's yours? What is it that you can do? Sometimes when we have these fears, they get the better of us. And I want to encourage you, if you're struggling with fear, here's a great exercise. If you're afraid of something, ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then say the worst thing. Write it down, speak it, whatever the case may be. And then say, okay, well, if that happens, what's the worst that can happen from there? And keep asking yourself, what's the worst? What's the worst? What's the worst? Okay? You're never going to get to a point, unless you're, a skydiving instructor that likes to, not follow safety rules or something. And that would just not be cool on any level. But when it comes to your business and the choices that you're making, we tend to really blow them up in our minds. But when you do this exercise, I have found multiple times when I do this exercise, it's like, yeah, that's not really so bad, is it? Like, if that's the worst that can happen, that's really not that bad. So encourage you to explore it. You can doom scroll through that lesson, and it can help you to sort of put some clarity on really how bad would it be if this one thing fell through. And then on the offside, you can say, well, if this is the worst thing that could happen, how can I mitigate that? What is the safety net that I can do to make sure that I have a solution if that happens? Okay. At the end of the day, I hope that fear never holds you back, although I know it probably will. I know it holds me back sometimes too. But the biggest thing you can do is take a lesson, learn from the failure or learn from your fears, and learn how you can change your business, your ways, so that this fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of whatever it is that you want to call the thing, learn from it so that you don't have to do that one over again. Get through things. And remember, fear feels exactly the same as excitement. People talk about public speaking, and if you're afraid of getting on stage, you can just tell yourself that you're excited about getting on stage instead of being fearful of being on stage. It's the same emotions, I think it's even the same chemicals inside your body, but that even the mindset shift can change and help you to get over some of these fears. I hope you have a fantastic week. I look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to the Overgivers Anonymous podcast. Your support means the world to me. You can find show notes for this episode and other goodies at overgiversanonymous.ca. And if you enjoyed this episode or you enjoyed the podcast in general, why not join us in the Overgivers Anonymous Facebook group, where you can connect with overgivers from all over the world. Head on over to geekygirl.ca/group.